There you go, guys.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this special meeting of the State Library Commission. We have about an hour reserved for this meeting, and I'd like to begin by just asking the commissioners to quickly introduce themselves. I'll start. My name is Kenning Arlich. I'm the chair of the commission, and I'm the higher education appointee. Kristen, how about we go to you next?
Yep, Kristen Kerr, Helena, Montana, acting vice chair for the moment.
Thank you. Robin.
Robin Scribner, commissioner appointed by the governor.
Thank you. Elsie.
Good morning. It seems like it's another Monday morning, but it's Tuesday. State Superintendent Elsie Arntzen.
Thank you. Dalton.
Good morning, everyone. Dalton Johnson. I'm actually zooming in from Fort Peck Lake today. So, yeah. Back to you, Kenning.
Thanks for being here, Dalton. Tammy.
Hi, I'm Tammy Hall from Bozeman, Montana, appointed by the governor. And I too am camping at Canyon Ferry. So we're zooming in from Helena, and then we'll go back up to the campsite. It seems obscene to put on makeup and start the generator. I want you to know, for hair curling.
Okay, thanks, Tammy. And Peggy?
Peggy Taylor. I'm zooming in with a little partner in crime today. My grandson's with me, but hopefully he'll cooperate. I'm in Kalispell.
Great, thanks, Peggy. Jenny.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jenny Stapp from the State Library. We could have said Lake State Library on Sunday night, so I'll share an update on the flood in just a moment.
Okay, Melissa.
Everyone, I'm Melissa Briggs, and I'm Central Services Manager at State Library.
Thank you. Evan.
Evan Hammer, Digital Library Administrator here at the Montana State Library.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Yes, Jenny, would you please give us an update on what happened over the weekend at the State Library?
Sure. I'm just going to share an image to give you a sense of some of the damage. This is the lower level of the library in our Talking Book Library operations. So on Sunday evening, many of you know that Helena had some flash floods from a major storm that blew through the area. We are a tenant in the Missouri building, so we rent our space from the Department of Administration, and General Services administers the building. They notified me about 8 p.m. on Sunday night that we had standing water in the library. It was caused by a storm drain on the roof of our area of the building that failed due to the amount of water that was coming in. So we had water pour in over about 6 cubes that were in the immediately affected area. The water then went from our main floor into the basement. You can see in this image some of the damage. So we had this kind of ceiling tile broken throughout the library. There was about 2 inches of standing water on the main floor and down into the lower level, extending into about 75% of the space. And as water was collecting in the ceiling on both floors, the ceiling tiles were bowing and then eventually crashing with the weight of the water. I really want to thank General Services for their quick response and in alerting us. They immediately brought in Dayspring Restoration, who worked Sunday night to remove the standing water. Of course, the carpets and floors are still wet, and then people are doing assessments to the damage to the walls and other surrounding areas. General Services has also brought in a restoration company called Belfour Restoration. And I was very relieved when I knew that General Services had contacted Belfour, because they're a highly reputable restoration firm who we often refer libraries to who are going through these kinds of situations. So I feel confident that we're in really good hands. As I said, they've determined that about 75% of our space has been impacted. They do still need to bring in moisture meters to get a sense of how far the moisture has spread, impact to the lower level drywall, baseboard, that kind of thing. So Belfour will be removing all of the contents of our space to allow for cleaning and drying of the space to occur, and exactly how much content will be removed will be determined based on that assessment from the moisture meters. We have had all of the staff come in at this point and remove their personal items and any equipment and materials that they need to be able to work remotely. Our staff that support Montana Libraries, as you know, most of them work remotely anyway, so many of them have not been impacted at all. We are in the process of collecting materials for the Montana Library Association Conference coming up the 1st of August, just to make sure that we have access to those materials before what's in the building goes off to offsite storage. Our GIS and heritage staff need access to some of the high-powered computing equipment that they rely on. And so some staff have been able to take their equipment home with them. Our staff are in the process of standing up remote workstations that those staff will be able to remote into to have access to the state network from home. I really want to thank the law library for making space available for us to host those remote machines. Our IT staff have been working very closely with the State Information Technology Services Division to get switches and power cables and other necessary equipment to stand up those machines. As I understand it, that equipment is now in place, and they're starting to make some of those remote machines operational. So hopefully by the end of the day, most of the staff who need access to those remote machines will have that access. I think that's just incredible given the fact that this happened on Sunday night and we had a holiday yesterday. As you can see from this photo, if we had not entered into the contract with the state of Utah, we would not be operating our Talking Book program at this time. You might recall back in April when we were talking about entering into a contract with the state of Utah, one of the concerns that staff had identified was the fact that we had this kind of single point of failure for that operation, and we really weren't in a resilient position. We couldn't have anticipated this kind of impact to our services. And I'm very proud to say that that contract has been executed. Services have been operational through the state of Utah now for a couple of weeks, and services to our Talking Book patrons are also continuing uninterrupted. So given the scale of the flooding, for us to be able to continue our services, have this meeting as planned, etc., I think is incredibly remarkable. I want to thank some of our staff. There were more than half a dozen staff here in the building Sunday night, attempting to quickly triage our IT equipment and other equipment needs, getting them out of harm's way. Some of us were here until after 11 Sunday evening. And then more than 20 staff were here at least some of the day yesterday, many staff all of the day yesterday, giving up their holiday to come in and help us manage the impact of this crisis for the state library. And you know, I don't have to tell you how wonderful and dedicated our staff are, and to see them all pulling together yesterday and continuing today is just truly remarkable. It is very cold here in the state library right now. My hands are chilly because they're keeping the temperature down to keep keep the humidity down. We understand that tomorrow they'll be bringing in dryers and it's going to get very hot and very dry. And at that point, I anticipate that all of our staff will be working remotely. We've been told it's safe for us to be in the building at this time, but it will likely get more uncomfortable for us to be in the building. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jenny? Okay, thank you for giving us that report. I'd like to move on to the main topic of the meeting. And I just want to lay out the order in which I'd like to run this. So I'm going to ask Jenny first to give us a background report on the branding project, just a recap so that we're all on the same page. And then I'm going to ask for public comment. And I'm going to limit the public comment to 30 minutes so that we can finish our business after that. So I'm going to ask Genevieve to put out a call for public comment now and to manage the order of the commenters when the time comes. After that, I'm going to ask for a vote on the logo that is in front of us. I know that the commission has, several members of the commission have asked to consider options for a new logo. We don't have a new logo at this point. So I think that we should make a decision on the logo that's in front of us and vote it up or down. If the vote fails, then we can discuss modifying or restarting the process. And that will most likely be asking the staff to propose a new path. So why don't we begin then with Jenny giving us just a brief recap on the branding project.
Sure, thanks, Kenny. This process, this project really started in earnest in December of 2020, but the thinking and discussion for the need for a rebranding for the State Library began really sooner than that. We knew that our work as a library is not that of a traditional library. We don't have a print book collection that we lend. We have some books here in the library. We have fewer books today than we did on Sunday. But a brand that represents a traditional library does not adequately reflect the wonderful work that we do in supporting Montana's public libraries, in supporting our GIS and natural resource communities, in managing and providing transparent access to the work of state government. And it was actually our budget analyst, Nancy Hall, back in, I think it was October of 2018-19, that said, you know, the name Montana State Library really doesn't capture what you do. And people have this traditional view of libraries and the library brand being books that doesn't reflect the work of the State Library. We hired Melissa in 2018, and she came to us having previously worked as the CFO for the Lewis and Clark County Community Health Center. And while she was there, they went through a rebranding process. And so she had experience with how a successful rebrand can really launch and elevate the work of an organization. People in Helena didn't have a sense of the kinds of services that were available to them through their community health center, and through the successful rebranding to Peerview, that has changed. So she brought that experience to the State Library and recommended that we start thinking about doing this kind of rebranding. When we started talking about this idea in earnest in late 2020, we reached out to Peerview and got a copy of the contract that they used for their rebrand. That was in 2013. It was based on that contract that we developed a budget proposal to take to the State Library Commission for a rebrand that included a consideration of the name and a possible name change, the creation of a new logo, and then a complete rebranding and brand rollout. So the budget was set at about $292,500, again, based on the budget from the peer review contract, which is now 8 years old. We took a proposal to the State Library Commission in December of 2020, asking for the commission to authorize us to enter into a contract with a professional firm to go through this rebranding process and to authorize use of some of the Montana State Library Trust dollars that were available to help with this project. I want to provide just a little bit of background information about what the trust is, because I know there's been some discussion and questions about the budget and the nature of the funding. The Montana State Library Trust is a collection of dollars that are donated from private individuals to the state library. These individuals are often patrons of the state library. Occasionally the state library is left in a will or an estate. And so that's how the dollars accumulate into this trust. And the State Library Commission has statutory authority to determine how those dollars are spent. And there's a commission policy that we follow when implementing how those dollars are spent. And then of course, in your quarterly financial reports, you get a report on how those dollars are being spent and the balance of that trust. So the commission approved this proposal in December of 2020. And then the staff went out to procurement, working with the State Procurement Bureau to select a firm. We had close to a dozen responses to this request for proposal, and we were really excited to select Hoffman York because they had a wonderful proposal. As a Milwaukee-based firm, they also have a Helena presence, and we had confidence in them because they manage the Montana tourism campaigns through the Department of Commerce. So we felt like they were an excellent firm to go through the process with. We executed that contract in August of last year, and you have a copy of that contract in your meeting materials. They began their research into the state library, including interviewing a number of stakeholders, reviewing survey information, and collecting other kinds of information. And they identified two key problems, as Addie explained in your previous meeting. One, that people don't know about the state library, and two, when they are using our services, they don't recognize them as state library services and associate them with our agency. And so a successful rebrand needs to be able to correct these kinds of problems. Part of the funding that we have expended to date went into the discussion about a name change for the state library. And those of you who were on the commission in February will recall that Tom from Hoffman York's team went into length at explaining why they decided to recommend against a name change for the state library. They determined after doing their evaluation of other similarly positioned organizations and libraries that there's a great deal of trust associated with the name library, and that there really isn't any better category of organization that fits the work of what we do, even though and despite the fact that a library has a long-standing brand associated with books. And ultimately, we felt excited by the idea of retaining the name library, even though it doesn't truly reflect the nature of our work, because the nature of libraries' work is changing, and we're excited to sort of be on the leading edge of what people can and should expect from 21st century library services. And so while we were initially initially we thought a name change would be a better approach. Once we had a chance to reflect on those recommendations, we're excited about the fact that we want to retain the name library. That said, I don't think we want to have a logo that is a stereotypical library logo, because we are not a stereotypical library. And I think that's an important component in thinking about what our logo should be going forward. As Addie described and is in your meeting materials, staff went through a lengthy process of reviewing a variety of images and of objects and people and places to try to identify the words and phrases and images most closely associated with the work of the State Library, to try to build those kinds of archetypes. And that work resulted in the brand positioning statement that was shared with the commission in February, and then again with the commission in June. And I think I saw and I think I felt a great deal of support and recognition by the staff and the commission when Addie was describing that brand positioning statement for the State Library. So, I think that there's a lot for us to support and build on there. That positioning statement informed a creative process working with the creative team at Hoffman York, which was really an iterative process where Hoffman York presented to our leadership team, myself, Melissa, and Evan, a variety of images. And it was an opportunity for us to look at those images and say, we like this, we don't like that. We loved the hexagon shape and how it reflects and is often utilized within GIS. We loved the idea of an open gate as a way to convey open access. And we really appreciated the prism. The iterative process meant that we were taking these images and ideas from different kinds of images that Hoffman York was presenting to us and bringing them together into what was shared with you at your last meeting. So I want to make the point that we weren't presented with 2 or 3 or 4 complete logos for us to choose from. It was really that kind of iterative process that led to the logo that we've shared with you and that you're considering today. I think for me, what is ultimately most important from this conversation is that you need to have confidence in what we select as the brand going forward for the State Library, because the commission and the staff work as brand ambassadors to represent the great work of the agency. So I want you to feel confident that as we move forward, you can carry forward that brand as ambassadors for our work here at the State Library. There have been a couple questions about the budget that I wanted to quickly address. So again, the commission authorized $292,500 for this project. That included a consideration of a new logo, consideration of the name change, and then the funding necessary to actually roll out the brand, make it public, make it visible, make it understandable to people. We've spent approximately 1/3 of that budget. We do have another invoice now to pay, but there's funding remaining in that budget for that brand rollout. There's been a question about our print budget. And we are largely a paperless agency. We have been for a couple of years now, and there's a directive from the governor's office for agencies to become paperless. So we don't have a print budget per se. Again, there's funding in the budget for this rebrand. And then also when the commission approved the FY23 budget in April, that budget included $80,000 obligated for marketing to help continue to support the rebranding effort. So those are the dollars that are budgeted for any kind of printing of materials and other kinds of marketing needs to support the rebrand. We do not have a day-to-day need to print materials because we are a paperless agency. And then I know there were questions about the brand rollout strategy, and that information is available in your meeting packet as well. It identifies the key internal audiences, including staff and the commission, external audiences, a desire to begin to roll out this new brand at our upcoming conferences later this summer and into the fall. It also identifies our other key target audiences that we will be engaging with as we roll out the brand strategy. I think that concludes the information I wanted to share about the background on this project and to hopefully answer some questions.
Thank you, Jenny. Are there any questions from the commissioners for Jenny? Okay, hearing no questions, let's move to public comment. Genevieve, do you have?
Yeah, we have 5 people who have said in the chat they'd like public comment. So we'll start with Rebecca Camp.
Hello, good morning. I'm Rebecca Camp and I'm Montana State Library's data coordinator. And I'm speaking in support of the State Library's new logo. I think that a prism is the perfect representation of how the State Library transforms information in useful ways. In a world where we're inundated with information, the library organizes that data so that Montanans can find meaning in it. While the State Library offers many different programs, the ability to synthesize that information to create a greater state of knowledge is a common thread throughout. And from an aesthetic point of view, I think the colors are modern and will translate well to our many different products, including our data dashboards and reports. On a personal level, I wanted to mention that I'm an avid outdoor recreationist, a hunter, and a library user. Over the last week, I hiked 75 miles in the Bob Marshall Wilderness, where I use products offered by the State Library, including maps, water level information, and natural heritage products. I also enjoyed a book that I borrowed from a local library. And what I saw was the vibrant red wildflowers, such as Indian paintbrush, the golden glow at sunrise on a crisp morning, the green of our pines and prairies, and the blue of the ice on a thawing alpine lake. The Janet Ivanovich paperback that accompanied me was likewise a full color cover. Please don't shy away from a spectrum of color. Montana is not a monotone landscape, nor are library shelves. The colors capture the diversity of information we consume and the beauty of our state, from the prairies to its highest peaks. Thank you for the opportunity to express my support of the new logo.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Okay, next is Kara Orban.
Good morning, commissioners. For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Kara Orban, the statewide projects librarian, and I have been at the State Library for nearly 10 years now. And so I have seen this agency and this management team go through a lot of ups and downs. And one of our tenets in the new rebranding is trust. And in my view, that is not aspirational. That is at the core of how we do things around here. Trust is at the heart of my work every day. And I believe that is true of all my colleagues across the agency. I have trusted relationships with library staff in communities across the state. And I trust very deeply in the integrity and the good judgment of my state library colleagues. And I trust this management team. As I said, we've been through ups and downs. This management team has been through several legislative sessions together. They've been through a major budget crisis. I've seen them work with our stakeholders, and I trust them to make recommendations that are in the best interest of our agency and the people we serve. And I think it's remarkable that our varied state library staff unanimously find this logo appealing. And I think that should mean something, because we all know our audiences and our stakeholders. We want what's best for our agency and the people we serve, and we think that this logo will represent us well. We know that there will always be people who will try to make bad faith insinuations, but courage is about making values-based decisions over fear-based decisions, and we want to lead with our values. I also know that trust is something that is built slowly over time. And for those of you who are new to our work, we are asking you to invest some trust in your state library staff today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara.
Next is Sharon Hardwick.
Good morning. My name is Sharon Hardwick. I'm the HR specialist with the Montana State Library. I would like to voice my positive support for the new logo for MSL. The concept of the prism, where light enters and comes out in a spectrum of colors, is very representative of what happens at the State Library. While our current logo and the multitude of other logos that have evolved are dear to the heart of many, they do not fully represent what the State Library is. We are much, much more than a stack of books. We are resources, information, directories, maps, technology, government information, natural heritage information, and education. We are ebooks, talking books, cadastral, LiDAR, water, plants, animals, bats. We are photos and draft records, yearbooks and hometown history, and we provide connections to rural Montanans. We are trusted, we are advocates, we are transparent, and we are innovative. We provide training, data, standards, consultations, guidance, customer support, and leadership to individuals of all ages, backgrounds, gender, ethnicity, and political affiliation without question or pause. We are an organization with talented, professional, and dedicated staff who have an amazing commitment to providing our services and resources to the people of Montana. We embrace being public servants who serve the diverse population of our state. I can't think of a better representation of what the State Library is than a prism, a single point where information enters and exits as a full spectrum of services and resources that truly create a greater state of knowledge. I would like to urge the Commission to accept the logo as developed and presented. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sharon.
Next is Bobby DeMontney.
Hi, my name's Bobby DeMontney. I work in library development, supporting multiple programs. I was very excited about our logo unveiling. The idea of a prism was just kind of perfect. It helps to identify all of the roles our departments play to create something bigger than any one of us, and I found it to be very uniting. I want to point out that there are so many corporate images like Google and Microsoft, and even different ministry logos and things out there making full use of the rainbow, but I really wanted to bring up some different educational and governmental logos that I've just run across. Georgia's library systems has 5 bright colors. Arkansas's, they use 4. Mississippi, they had a logo made up for their own library commission, and it's very pretty. And it included 5 colors with a black base and the colors flowing out from it like building blocks. And that also gave the impression that it contributed to a greater whole. The Tennessee Library Association also used 5 colors. And there was so much color in the Utah's various agencies that you could expect to see an ark full of animals floating around somewhere in their state. Their government digital library and their Association of Charter Schools, as well as Utah Kids Ready to Read and the state of Utah's online public library, were very inviting. I could tell that they cared a lot about accessible information, and they had a bright, hopeful, and engaging outward-facing presence. Others of note include Oklahoma's Department of Commerce and Oklahoma's Turnpike Authority. These share the same color schemes as our logo. And I also wondered about the attitudes in a more regional sense. So I looked at our neighbors, Wyoming and Idaho. Central Wyoming's fair and rodeo is a shining example of how color can make a logo pop. Theirs is a cowboy riding a bucking horse with a rainbow of color waving behind him like wind, and that contained 11 colors. Our neighbors in Idaho have 10 very vivid colors in their state seal, and their homeschooling system is also adorned with 4 very bright colors. I will conclude this closer to home. Our own Chamber of Commerce has color in its logo, as does the Montana Arts Council. And the logo for the Montana Public Education Center is a child silhouette in brown with bright reds, oranges, greens, and teals bursting forth out of the child. And that logo contains 5 colors. I don't see this as a source of controversy. I don't see it as a source of controversy here or anywhere. And I'd like to keep our logo, and I'm excited to start using it to prepare my presentation materials for the upcoming Tri-State Conference. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next is Coley.
Good morning, everyone. This is Coley Bartow. I'm currently the Montana State Library Continuing Education Coordinator. I'm pleased to be able to speak to you from that perspective, but also as someone who was amongst your ranks for 8 years as a State Library Commissioner, understand very much the weight of making decisions and also to do what's right to support and to foster an environment for the staff and the agency so that they really truly can fulfill their mission. So as we learned as a staff about the process of developing the brand, including a logo, one of the tenets that really struck me, and you've heard this theme through some of my other colleagues, is that idea of trust. And so I just wanted to reiterate how important it is as brand ambassadors that we really take to heart what those tenets say about trust in particular, and what that says about our reputation. So what I basically wrap up with is that the words of the mission and the value and the tenet statements were what really got me excited and even emotional as we learned about those together as a staff with the work that we did in May together. Those words are the pillars that our staff can lean on for clarity, for confidence, and for direction as we move forward into these next iterations of what library services and information services are across our state. The logo is merely a representation of those ideas, a very thoughtful representation of those ideas. And because they were constructed through the thoughtful and professional services that were authorized by the commission, I feel really excited about the prospect of what the words and the brand will allow us to do going into the future. The Montana State Library and the Commission, it did start as a place with a purpose to help share books and to share information and to get libraries and library services into the corners of our state that didn't have those services. And I think another just really exciting aspect to this next iteration is how information and sharing that greater state of knowledge will really help us move forward and to develop those thriving communities and thriving minds. So thank you very much for listening, and appreciate your time.
Thanks, Coley. Genevieve, do we have anyone else?
That is the end.
Yeah. Would any of the commissioners like to say anything?
Kenny, I would like to make a comment, but I would like to preface this with I would also like to move to a vote now or later if that's appropriate. But with that said, commissioners, this logo proposes going further and expanding our own thinking and ideology. I encourage you to consider a new era for the future of the library services provided by the state of Montana. The Montana State Library plays a fundamental role in our communities, and as commissioners here today, our role is to guide the future of the library and the services provided. We are not your traditional library. We've heard that today. Our services stretch across the realms of business, politics, society, and beyond. I ask each of you today to think about how we design our services, what we provide, who we provide our services for. We live in an era of an ever faster changing world where we expect short-term results, make fashionable decisions, and we have limited shelf lives. Yet many of our biggest challenges require long-term thinking. The nature of library services is changing, and as represented in the work from Hoffman York, we see that in the PRISM concept. I ask each of you to expand your thinking by imagining an alternative future and going beyond what is safe, stale, and culturally determined norms. Commissioners, I see your commitment to service and building a better world. Our decision today and rhetoric today are listened to. Our actions today communicate the inevitable direction of the services provided by our agency. I know some of you have researched a multitude of other logos across our state and even proposed moving towards a monochromatic scheme to be in alignment with other state logos. However, I question, will that logo be impactful as what was built by the professionals? Commissioners, today we set the precedent for the future direction and future decisions from our great staff and our librarian. If we are creating a greater state of knowledge, we must expand our own thinking. And I'd like to move to support accepting this logo to motion.
Thanks, Dalton. Any other commissioners?
One thing, good morning, everyone. This is Elsie Arnson, State Superintendent. I just am impressed that a lot of staff appreciated the logo, and I want to commend the staff and the leadership team for putting this together. But I didn't hear anything from the rest of the public. And I don't know internally, Jenny, what has occurred to have staff come forward. As I had said in our conversations, and even when this first was given to us, when we were at the state capitol, that it seemed that it was something that came from within the commission, was outside. And I do appreciate all the comments that were stated by the staff today. Running an agency is tough work, and to have buy-in from the staff, I think, is important, and it also leads to the leadership of it. So what I would like to see, though, is more understanding of how this process occurred within the staff's realm through the leadership team. Jenny, I believe you said that it was yourself and Evan, and then who else was it that was the lead team on the logo development within the agency? And again, I want to applaud all the members of the State Library for coming forward today and sharing with us as a commission their appreciation.
Thanks, Elsie. I want to give Jenny a chance to respond to that, but I also want to point out again that there are public comments in our meeting materials today. There are written comments, so it wasn't just staff comments. Staff were the only ones that we heard from orally today.
And there's another person in chat. I'm not sure who Carol is. But
I think it's Carol Churchill.
okay. So Elsie, to answer your question, most of the staff on our leadership team were interviewed by Hoffman York as we started this process. The actual process of looking at the creative design and selecting the images, as I described, that iterative design process, was myself, Evan, and Melissa.
Any other commissioners?
This is Robin. I would like to thank the staff also and Jenny for everything that they have done. And I would like the staff to know that we as commissioners, I myself personally have, although not being on the commission very long, feel a great trust for Jenny. She's been nothing but kind. Genevieve, everyone that I have met has been just very trustworthy. However, I do not see, I agree with the messages in the explanation of the logo, but I do not see the descriptive language of the message map in the logo. And I appreciate the tenets of access, trust, purpose, efficiency, and leading edge, and that a prism has many facets, and a hexagon in represents the GIS, a pathway in, information out, all great ideas, all great images. But the first questions from the multiple people that I have showed the logo to was, what is it and where's the book? And I understand the digital age. I understand all that. But the term library, state library, that is my issue here. I really, you know, the digital age, our services include library to go, the shared library, the talking book library. Even though books are not always on paper, people think book when they hear the word library, and they think the word book, that these services, I mean, these are huge services that we provide to Montanans, and the logo has to get these services across while including all the others that the library, I mean, even though we are not providing books, we are still the state library, And library historically is a book. And so it still means books, and those services, all the services are totally important. I mean, how amazing. When I first came on the commission, I had no idea that the state library did cadastrals, and that, I mean, we do my husband's a farmer, he uses the cadastral. My son-in-law's insurance uses cadastral. Kristen Kerr uses the cadastral. It's amazing what the state library does. But all the services are important. And I guess we need a logo that helps people to understand that what services the Montana State Library provides. And yet, if we have to explain what the logo is to most of the people, to most, and I'm not saying most people, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can look at it and say, wow, that's amazing. But I'm sorry, I didn't catch it, except for the language. The description that Addie gave us was amazing, truly amazing. But I did not catch that I don't catch that from the logo, and I'm sorry, I don't. I wish I did. I guess if the message is not clear, then we're not clarifying or improving the situation. And the commission has the best interest of the MSL, the staff, everyone. I believe we have the best interest of everyone and Montanans in our hands. But I don't know if we're meeting that goal with the rebrand and the logo. And I apologize terribly, but that's my feeling.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. I mean, I think you've just very clearly articulated and encapsulated a struggle that I've had my entire, 28, 29 years as a professional librarian. I came into this profession just as the World Wide Web was exploding, and we're not books anymore, but yet we have such a hard time defining and symbolizing what we are. And that's why this is so hard. And that's why I think we have to trust the professionals to design this, and we're never going to come up with an acceptable logo on our own as a commission. And I'm sorry, books, I know that this is what people still think. I fight this every day. Books are just not what we do anymore. They are such a small percentage of what we do anymore. But I really appreciate how you laid out the problem very clearly. This is the big struggle. And this is why, and this is why, there are all kinds of logos. You think about the Nike swoosh or the Amazon ellipse or whatever it is, what do those represent? They don't, in the end, they don't necessarily represent anything unless you go back to the designers, right? But they just become an accepted logo over time. And they become recognizable as that institution or that company's logo over time. This is the big struggle. So I'm mindful of our time, and I want to bring
I would
this
like
to
to
a
make a,
vote.
sorry, Kimmy,
Tammy, please, yeah, please, as quickly as you can.
I will have.
Thank you.
So, first of all, thank you for your comments. I was so appreciative of our articulate, hardworking staff. I really, really appreciate you and all you do. My vote today is not at all about the staff. It has nothing to do with colors. It has nothing to do with the prism. I'd like to make that clear. I'm sorry that that became such a big issue. My vote today against this logo, first of all, the governor of Montana is in the process of rebranding. And he has asked all the people involved in these things, including our librarian Ginny, to run things by him and work with them. And so I feel there's a real need to work with the governors, at least get input on the staff development rebranding. I also have concerns about the cost. I think that we are in a great time of economic uncertainty that we could not have seen a year ago. And I agree with Robin. I do not see library in the design. And I have shared this with, I'd say probably close to 100 people. And the number one comment is, it doesn't say library. I just want to share a quick story. I was camping. We're camping right now up at Canyon Ferry next to a wonderful family we were introducing ourselves to last night. And the little girl is 6 and she had a book. And she said she got her book from her public library here in Helena. She loves the library. She goes to the library. She gets books. So I do believe that the library system still, books are a big part. It's what says library, even though we don't want to be stuck in the past again. So those are the reasons. And I appreciate the staff greatly. And I appreciate all that Hoffman York did to get information from the staff. But any logo that has to be described and explained in that much depth is out of step right now.
Kenny, I have a member of the public, Victoria, who would like to speak as a member of the public in this meeting.
Okay, yes, please, quickly.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for making time for me. Yes, I'm a member of the public. I'm not associated with the library, but I do use library services specifically for GIS. And I've also taken some story map training in the library as well. So I'm completely data-based with the library stuff. So I like the logo. I think it's catchy. I think it's nice. I don't use books from the state library. So this whole catch up on the book situation, I think is a bit of a non-issue for me. And to be fair, I didn't realize that the current logo had books in it. I just saw the S. I guess it's kind of a little bit of an optical illusion, but yeah, I think this is a whole lot of nothing. I love the logo currently, the colorful one, and I think you guys should adopt it.
Thank you, Victoria.
Other board
Okay.
members?
I'd like to draw this discussion to a close. I just want to say, I realize that this has not been an easy situation and it's caused us all a lot of stress. This is probably the most internally contentious issue that we've had to deal with in my 6 years on the commission. I have heard from some commissioners that you wish the brand had been revealed to the commission in advance of the public meeting we held on June 15. And in hindsight, I have to say I agree. It would have eliminated the surprise, particularly when I was the only commissioner who was able to attend the staff retreat in Butte, where the logo was first revealed. But we were following the path the commission agreed to in February and for the year preceding. And I don't think that revealing the logo more privately to the commission would have changed the outcome of where we are today. So I think it's important for the commission to clearly communicate expectations to staff and to trust staff to execute those expectations. In this case, the commission approved a process that was proposed by the staff, which included hiring outside design expertise that we do not have. While we may have statutory authority, I don't believe it will be appropriate or effective for the commission to engage in design or to try to even agree on one of various logo options. So I'm asking you to vote in support of this logo. I will also reiterate Jenny's plea that we all agree to support the commission's decision regardless of the outcome of the vote. If the vote passes, we will agree to support the brand. If the vote fails, we will work with the state library to develop another path. So with that said, may I have a motion to approve the logo?
Kenning, I move to approve the logo.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second it. This is Peggy.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you. Any further discussion from the commission? Okay, so I'd like to ask Genevieve to help me record the votes of each of the commissioners. Commissioner Arnson, we'll start with you. How do you vote?
No.
Thank you. Tammy Hall,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kerr,
Nay.
Commissioner Scribner,
No.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
and Commissioner Arlich also votes yes. So looks like the motion has failed by a 4-3 vote. Thank you for your attention to this and your votes. I think that the next step will be for us to ask, I will suggest that the next step will be for us to ask the staff to propose a new path or next steps. And then we will meet again to discuss that.
Kenning, if I could, thank you. I believe there's something in the chat. And I think the ambiguity that we have right now, the unknown is there. And Genevieve, I don't know who this individual is.
Yeah, let me
it's
read it.
wanting
I'm
to know
sorry.
what the- Yes.
I'm going to read,
I
yeah.
think-
Okay, Melody Carl, she's one of our
Yes.
staff members. She says, as a staff member at MSL, I am concerned at what the option is. This logo is voted down. Does the process start over? And if so, what? If someone disagrees with the next one as well, do we continue to spend time and funds on this?
Thank you, Genevieve. And the reason why I bring this up, Kenning, as you as chair, would like to have, and the great staff and the comments that were here in support, not just of the logo, but in support of the great work that the library does. I believe moving a step forward in a solid manner is important for us as a commission to direct. One of the issues that we could have is Jenny bring, or yourself bring, a subcommittee of the commission together to discuss those next steps so that the commission is there all the way along in a manner with the staff so that we can have a very blended, concerted effort moving forward so that it's not broken up between staff or broken up between commission, that we can move together. And I believe that is what I heard when the commission heard all the individuals from the library talk about the logo and the process that is there. The other thing that I would like is on the budget aspect of it. I believe, Jenny, you shared that we have how much money that has been expended so far in this effort?
With the invoice we just received, we'll have spent about 130 of the 292,000. So we have about 162,000 remaining.
Thank you. And I believe some of that was going to be for the rollout as well. I think that's really an important discussion that the commission needs to really put their arms around, is the expenditures and the pathway forward. Those are just some of my ideas, Kenny, but I really would like us to have a healing process moving forward. And, you know, diversity, adversity is always going to be there in any role that we have. We have an odd number in our commission, but I believe that we can succeed moving forward in a blended model and understanding what staff's requests are, as well as moving with the commissions. And we are a brand new commission, really, when you really look at who we are at this point. So Kenny, I'll leave that up to you, but those were just my thoughts.
Well, okay, so thanks, Elsie. I heard thoughts. I'm just want to come back and ask, what are you proposing specifically? I think I heard you suggest that we form a subcommittee.
Yes, sir. What I believe is that we have someone from the commission working with the state librarian and the staff to really hone down exactly that next step forward, and then bring it toward the commission for a vote with a little bit more understanding of the process of the rollout, the budget being set, and everything. I firmly believe that will be a healing method going forward, that the commission and the staff can work together.
Right, so you're suggesting one person from the commission?
I'll let you determine the number of who should be on that, but I believe that someone from the commission and with staff can work forward rather than looking backward.
So I'm going to suggest that Jenny and I put our heads together and put out a call to the commission for possibly for such a committee. Okay.
Two comments in chat. I was going to read real quick. If that's okay.
Hemming, may I make a comment, please?
Hang on, Tammy. I think Genevieve was about to read some.
I was going to read a couple chats real quick. Kara Oben said that misrepresents what we were saying. Amelia Kim, who is also MSL staff, says, while I understand and accept the commission's decision, I would like to express my disappointment in a vote today. Marilyn Bennett said, I would also like to express my disappointment with today's vote. And Star Bradley says, I am also disappointed in today's vote. It seems like a waste of time and money to go through this process all over again. Thank you to the commissioners who voted for this logo. And that's all the chats.
Okay, thank you, Genevieve. Tammy?
Yes, I would ask, in addition to what Elsie, I agree with the people who just wrote in and said, I don't want to repeat this process exactly as we have, because with one person or whatever, then we do get into just individual opinions. I think the starting point for me that I recommend is that, again, I understand, Jenny, that you have been in discussion with people in the administration about the rebranding of the Montana, the whole process of rebranding. And I would like to start with getting input from the state, because we are an agency within the state, and find out what that rebranding is going to look like. How do we fit into that rebranding and not go out on our own completely? Because that's the whole point of the state's rebranding, is to pull clarity into this. So I would ask that anything we go forward would begin with the rebranding of the state, and see, Jenny, if you would meet with somebody in that office, the governor's administration, and find out what they're doing and what we can do to work within that. If we need a legal opinion, we do have a right to a legal counsel as the commissioners if we need to revisit the contract and see what our options are with that. So we also have that option if we wanted to ask for a legal understanding, so we don't get ourselves in any kind of accidental pickle. Again, I appreciate all the comments from the staff, and I appreciate all they do.
May I make a comment really quickly, Kenny? To
Yes.
Echo what Elsie has said, I think that this can be a springboard going forward. I don't see this in the responding to the comments in the chat, and I know that there's disappointment and don't see that we're starting back from square one. I think what we need to do is take what we have and revisit with the Department of Administration to see if we can glean anything from how their rebranding might affect any part of that logo. I really appreciate everything with the mission, the value, the tenants. I thought it was just a beautiful process through the entire thing, and want to make sure that what we're doing best represents the Montana State Library. If that is keeping it or tweaking it in a very minute way, but to also be cognizant and respectful and loving of all of the work that has gone in thus far. And would like to see Jenny and Kenning come up with a plan to move forward, whether that is 1 or 2 commissioners or 3. But Jenny, I want to also thank you so much for valuing our input as a commission, because we really do want to advocate and champion the state library.
And the amazing.
Okay, thanks, Kristen. We will put our heads together and we will come back to the commission with a proposal. Okay, thanks everyone for your participation today. This meeting is now adjourned.
Kenny, I have a question. Are we sending the Hoffman York proposal, or would it be, I mean, I guess, what is our step forward to Department of Admin? Would we send the proposal from Hoffman York and have them tweak it, or get feedback?
I would like to suggest, as they were describing, we have some commissioners work with staff to evaluate the current logo, the elements of it that we appreciate, bring in a representative from the Department of Admin to give more information about the rebranding process and get what kind of advice that they could provide. I think that's an important conversation to have, and I don't think
Point of order. I think we're discussing after we have. Is somebody still on? I think we're
the meeting is
discussing
adjourned,
after we've adjourned the meeting. And if there are questions with the, I think we need to revisit the adjournment. Maybe we shouldn't be adjourned if Dalton's asking a specific question about Hoffman York.
I wasn't asking for a vote, Tammy. I was asking about process.
I know, but the process really shouldn't continue after the meeting has been adjourned. So yeah, I think your question is very well taken, and it involves, to me, maybe what I questioned earlier, getting a legal opinion.
Well, let's let Kenning and Jenny sort it out then, and let's not talk about it like reasonable adults. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thanks, Kimmy.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.